Welcome to Truth Talk. Good morning, good night, wherever you are out there in Podcastistan. Here we are trying to arm you with the mind of Christ and trying to arm you with a way of making your way forward without becoming disoriented. I know it's a wild world out there, and especially in Podcastistan where truth is rationed and lies and distortions are abundant. So welcome back to Truth Talk. Today I have the unique and special pleasure of having my dear friend and fellow laborer in Calgary, Andrew Bentley. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you. Always great to be in studio and riffing off ideas and sharing ideas. So thank you.
So I never come across anything that kind of populates the leadership track that I don't think, I got to get Andrew on here and we got to have a conversation. So thanks for doing this for me. Today, real quick before we get started, because we're not doing a tea time, I want to get my episodes book recommendation in for you. I want to recommend two books, and one I recommended, I think, a long time ago, but I've been using it on my last three podcasts, and a lot of you have been asking, what book is he reading from? I'll give you that in a minute. I want to start with Transfigured by the Bishop J. Todd Nichols, very good friend of mine. And you can get this on Amazon for like $10. And it is a brilliantly written book. He wrote it a long time ago, I understand, but it covers a wide breadth of material on holiness and living the transfigured life. And so if you want a book that deals with issues of holy living and issues of personal integrity and character, this is the book for you. Highly recommend it. There was something I was dealing with just recently in Truth Church, and I reread it and found myself to be just really edified by it. So I want to give that recommendation. The other one is the book that you guys are asking, what is he reading from? I am reading from Abigail Schreier's book, Bad Therapy, Why Kids Aren't Growing Up. And so a lot of the research that I'm quoting, especially by the professor of psychology at Charité University in Berlin, that is what I'm quoting here. So if you're looking at that, that's the book. Okay, we're going to start out just talking a little bit about current events and how that relates to our world. Have you watched or heard anything about Tucker Carlson lately?
Yes.
Okay, Preston's going to throw up a video here on the screen, and we're going to watch it very briefly. I think it was done by maybe CNN or whatever it was. And they laid it out, and it's part of Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes, who is a Holocaust denier, who says, and I quote, Hitler was an awesome guy. Okay? And so Carlson, he was a number of a bunch of podcasters that took on these really kooky online influencers. And this avowed Holocaust denier and racist, Nick Fuentes, came on, and he didn't get any of Tucker's, kind of pounding from his point of view. He just let the guy, spew his stuff. So he went on to claim that Vance was mentored as a Jewish neocon and a gay fed, and he calls them all kinds of racist things, and then goes into basically glorifying Hitler and said Hitler's an awesome guy. And Carlson's just, kind of nodding. Well, Tucker Carlson's audience has been hemorrhaging. So let's watch this. It's just a brief excerpt of it, and then we'll kind of talk about it.
Okay, world's a little bit more complicated than you're making it out to be. Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really cool. And any boy knows that. Anybody who watches these videos where he's rolling down the street and stuff, it's like, this guy's awesome.
Okay, so let me break in. He's challenging, like, basically the whole military-industrial complex, which very, very well may need to be challenged. But in doing so, he's undermining everything that he has, and really, he's throwing away his influence. So that brings me to the question of, if you're a follower of somebody, because I've followed Tucker. You listen to his stuff?
Occasionally, I've heard a few things.
Yeah. Did you happen to watch his Putin interview?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was pretty stunning.
Impressive.
And I think it was you that, what'd you say about it just being able to get the interview?
Just the fact you could get access to Putin is incredible.
Yeah. So he's got huge bandwidth among the geopolitical world. And by what Douglas Murray and Vanderbilt University says, by reputation laundering like this, he's squandering his influence. Okay. So let's start with just thinking about the listeners here, the watchers, whatever you are. How do you back your way out of somebody who you've really become? Like, I've followed this guy for years, and then all of a sudden there was a shift, and it's like, what do I do? Do I just keep doubling down on a sunk cost fallacy because this is a voice of the right? Or is there a way that we should be thinking about this?
Yeah, I think content, and we think about content, and we listen to content, and we listen to certain people because of the content that they deliver, and we think that is good content. The problem is content is a stream. It's stratified into what I like to think is that there are motives that are hardwired into the content. There is information or data that's hardwired into the content, and then there's inference that the speaker is leading the jury, if you will, towards some conclusion. He's just not randomly throwing out facts that are out of context, but he's moving you towards a thought process. And I think for us, that as consumers of content, and we are more than probably ever before consuming more content, that we have to be really judicious about the way we think about the consumption of content. That it's just not content. Oh, I'm hearing things. No, within that content, there's a stratification of motive, there's a stratification of inference, and there's a stratification of data. And if you're not hip to that, if you're not aware of that, you're gonna miss a whole bunch of things, and you're gonna be listening to content that will have an effect on you. And I'll think about Antonio Damasio, neuroscientist, and he talks about this idea of whether we are in fact rational human beings. Do we operate from the prefrontal cortex? And his thesis is simply this, is that no, we don't. That everything we do, every thought, every consideration has to be filtered through the limbic system. And so what that means is that when you ask somebody a question, without a limbic system, and he's proven this through people who have had brain injuries, that without a limbic system, the ability to go back and to say, what are my previous experiences? What have I heard, thought before? Going back into the hippocampus and the hypothalamus and using these access points within our brain to understand this, you can't make a decision. And so I say all that to say this, is that when you are listening to content, you are not listening with a rational brain. You are always listening through the limbic system. And that limbic system, that emotional part of your brain, is consuming that information. Yes, the data is being consumed, but so is the motive, so is the inference, and so are the past experiences that you've had. And so all of that to say, we've got to be more discriminating about the content we listen to, because it's not just the data feed that we're getting.
That's good. So would you have a bit of a conscientiousness about who you are led by or who you allow to assume that you're a follower of?
100%. And not only that, is that bringing that intentionality to be discriminating about, okay, I know there's a stream of content that's coming at me. Now I have to parse that.
Right.
It's my responsibility to say, what's the motive here? What are we trying to achieve here? What's the inference? Where am I being led towards? And it's that ability to be discriminating, not just simply thinking I'm consuming content, data. No, you're getting the other pieces of that stratification.
Yes. And so you think that influence is a social resource akin to like power or wealth. And so if you just ascribe yourself to be a follower of something or someone, then you are basically creating their platform for them. And so you have to make a moral choice of, do I follow this or not?
Correct.
And that doesn't just go with pastors or saints or presidents and voters or prime ministers and voters. That also goes into this newfound elite information society of personal celebrity.
100%.
And so I was in the United States my whole life until I moved here. And somewhere when I was in my early 30s, maybe late 20s, but early 30s, I became a registered independent voter. I got out of the Republican Party because I did not like the idea that they did not have to win my vote, that I was taken for granted. Okay. So even on these podcasts or on these authors, whatever it is, we have a moral obligation to kind of disseminate the information and to what degree we're going to follow that. Because Paul says this, and I love this, and I understand conversation is lifestyle to him, okay? But Paul said, consider the end of my conversation. And he literally asks his followers to check the trajectory.
That's good.
You know, and that's the kind of leader I want to be. Not always that way, but I want to be that way. Consider where this thing is headed. And do you like where we're going to arrive at? If not, then we need to do some serious, rethinking of the direction we're going or what we're doing. So that's one part of this. People just assuming that because this is right. I don't know that I want to be a part of the new right. It seems awfully anti-Semitic to me. It seems quasi-racist to me. It certainly seems and feels dumber. I don't know that it is, but it certainly feels that way to me. So I don't even really want to just automatically say I'm in the right. I want to be a Christian. Yeah. And that takes some thinking to do it.
100, yeah. And for me, I would add one more word into that, which is homogenizing, that there is this sense is that somehow we all become homogenized into a single thought, into a single action, and that's not useful. It's not useful for anybody to be completely homogenized. And I feel like the polarizations that we're experiencing are doing exactly that. You either are or you're not. There's no nuance. There's no opportunity to be, well, I can agree with that and disagree with those three things. Somehow you either got to be all in or all out. And I think as we get further into the conversation, we think about leaders who sort of lean towards that megalomania, that it's very much a litmus test of your loyalty, that if you're not all in, not 99%, not 75%, you either have to be all in, right? It becomes almost a death cult to the degree that if you're not all in, then you're not with me. And I think we see this in Scripture where Jesus, people are saying, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're like, Jesus said, look, if they're not against us, they're for us. Like, there's going to be nuance. There's going to be room within here in the way that we do things. But let's not try to homogenize a single idea across a single population.
That's very good. I have not yet preached it, but by the time this comes out, you will be able to actually go see it if you want. But I'm working on a sermon called 100%. And somebody walked up to me and told me, very kind, very generous, a bit naive, said, Pastor Walker, I'm 100% behind you. And I said, I'm not even 100% behind me. I don't even know what that, I think in working to create a brand, I'm afraid of a brand that asks me not to think. Okay. And so knowing who I am, okay, so I've got to be assertive, I've got to be confident, but I cannot just be drunk on my own decisions, right? So I'm working through, there's parts of me and parts of my style and parts of my implementation that I'm gravely concerned about. Like, I'm not satisfied with that. So to say I'm 100% behind something or someone is a scary statement, you know, and it shouldn't be that way, you know. It should be the part of me that follows Christ. I'm 100% behind that Christ-centered focus, you know, and that part of you that wants to work out the details of what does that look like in the Christian experience. That's what I'm 100% behind. Mm-hmm. So let's move the conversation a little bit away from us as followers or listeners, if you can. If there's anything you want to add to that, you can always circle back. But are you good there?
Yep. Okay.
So now let's look at less the audience of Tucker Carlson. Someone will just and let me just say this: Tucker Carlson is not what I'm doing this podcast about. Okay, he is just the nomenclature that I've copied and pasted in to talk about some deep leadership concepts that we all need to be toying with. Okay, so let's focus on a little bit about Tucker or the leader. Okay, all of us that are leaders. I mean, if you're just, some, just buddy that doesn't want to do anything, you're not working on it. All of us are working on a brand. How do we sell ourselves? How do we create ourselves, but not become self-centered or self-promoting? Okay, and so this is a fascinating deal. I don't know if you've seen this one, Harvard Business, how to build a personal brand. It's interesting how it starts with the quick takes, okay? Just hard-hitting facts. If you're going to, the numbers, generate it. Boom, boom, boom. If you're going to have a brand, you got to do this, 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 and this. By the time you get to the end of this little magazine, it's all about humility. It's all about showing people that you're not obsessed with brand loyalty. You're obsessed with brand integrity, okay? So it starts out in the quick take. Your reputation is made about the prioritization of priorities before it is made up of opinions and beliefs of people before they form them about you on the basis of your collective actions and behaviors. Your personal brand, on the other hand, is much more intentional. It is how you want people to see you if you're shallow, or it is built if you're credible on who you are fundamentally. Okay? So you watch someone like Tucker working really hard on getting brand loyalty. Okay? But the brand integrity is falling apart at the seams. Right? He was called by a writer in Vanderbilt University a reputation launderer, right? That is a far cry from what he was as a power broker within the conservative movement. So talk to me a little bit about, first of all, how do we make a brand without becoming self-promoters? And then how do we focus on brand integrity?
Yeah, so I would say the brand, it's an interesting word because it has sort of a commercial appeal to it or association with it. But I think if you think about the great brands, and we could argue what those brands might be, they probably have four things. They probably have trust is one of the key ingredients, and we can double click on trust because I think trust is sort of fundamental to everything. Second one is innovation. Third one is value. And the fourth one is probably service, the customer service, the experience, the guest experience that goes with that.
Okay, repeat them again, and we're going to put them on a list so you'll see them on the screen.
So trust I would put as number one.
Okay.
Second might be not hierarchically second, but a second one might be innovation.
Yep.
Third one is value, so value for money. And the fourth one is service, or what you might consider guest experience. That's how you build a lasting brand. If you're a commercial product and you want to build a lasting brand, those are the four things you got to do really, really well. And from a leadership perspective, we could talk about innovation. Innovation from a leadership perspective. Say, well, where does that fit in? That is someone who's constantly in development, somebody that's bringing ideas, somebody that's bringing a new synthesis to ideas, not necessarily new ideas in the sense that, oh, I found something that's never existed before, but it's the synthesis of those ideas. That's the innovation that we bring in thought leadership. Value, we could talk about value, we could talk about service, and that lends itself towards that servant-based leadership. But the trust is the one that I want to double click on, because that's the one that I think as leaders and brand development, whether it's from a commercial perspective, but certainly from a leadership perspective, that's where leaders need to spend their time. And if you think about trust, what are the ingredients of trust? There are 4 or 5 things that you can think about that make up trust. In order to be trustworthy, you have to bring trust, and the two sort of play off each other. But trust is about these things. It's about communication. People who generate high trust are strong communicators. People that generate high trust have high competence. People that generate trust have congruence, meaning what they say, what they do, who they are, wherever they are, is consistent. Number 4, they have continuity. They're not one and done. They're not Roman candles. They are long-term people that continue into the long term. And lastly, they have compassion. And if you can, as a leader or somebody who's trying to build trust, if you can bring those 5 ingredients, then you will have leadership brand. Not something that can be traded in the marketplace, not something that has commercial value, although if from a commercial perspective, you can create commercial value. But from the perspective of leadership, which is what I care about, those are the 5 ingredients that if we continually bring to the party, we will build trust. And that's what builds leadership brand.
That's so good. So you have high communication,
Yep.
strong communication, high level of competence.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the balance between execution of the vision and communication? Can you just do execution, or do you got to balance that constantly with bringing people with you?
You constantly have to balance it all the time, because in order to inspire people to come with you to see the better future, and I try to remember Jimmy Carter, that he couldn't sufficiently create a vision large enough for the challenges in front of him. I can't remember the exact quote, but the sense of if you can't create a vision, if you can't be sufficiently aspirational, then you can't get people to buy in. And if you can't get people to buy in, then you can't move them to where they need to go. So it's constantly this balance between vision and execution. What you see in leaders, and all of us have strengths that we have predispositions towards certain strengths. Some people are great visionaries, terrible executors, and therefore they need to bring somebody along for execution. Other people aren't so good at the vision. They can't cast the vision. They can't see. They're not prescient enough, whatever that might be in terms of the necessary characteristic. But boy, can they execute. They know swim lanes, Gantt charts. They can get people organized. They know exactly how to do that. And so they need to bring somebody that has vision along. And so you've got to have all of those ingredients. You may not have them within yourself, and therefore you've got to bring the people along with you to do it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. How does a man get to the point, because there's a bit of a kind of a, I don't want to say, false, mythical thing, but nobody can be everything. Right. So you say if you're not the visionary, and you're the execution, guy, and you were able to implement, you got to bring a visionary. How do you come to the place where you recognize I need help in these areas? What's some ways if your brand, and again, we both are uncomfortable with the word brand, mm-hmm. but this is the world we live in, mm-hmm. how to build a personal brand, and I'm working on trust. How do I get to the point where I need to go outside of myself and get somebody to talk to me? Like what's some things that should be jolting people to say, wait a minute, I haven't had that kind of conversation?
Right. So 3 things. Number 1 is which is bedrock, foundational to leadership, foundational to emotional quotient, is awareness. Is that if you don't have awareness of yourself, if you're not constantly looking in the mirror and saying, do I have that skill set? And what are the proof points that I have that skill set? Number 2 is feedback, is the ability to actually get feedback from people within your purview, that are within your care, that you should be soliciting feedback all the time. How did I do there? Did I execute that well? Was I better on the execution or better on the vision? Where could I be more supportive of what you're trying to achieve? So you constantly, when I was in business, I would have an envelope that I would leave on my desk, and every quarter I'd send out an email that says, hey, looking for the feedback. How did I help you succeed this year? Where did I not help you succeed this year? I'd have 5 or 6 questions. They'd type it all up and they'd just put it in the envelope, and I'd go through and I'd read those. And I still have some of them today of feedback. Wow. Most recently, probably 2 months ago, I reached out to probably 10 different people that were within my care in different, so some lateral, some senior, some below, or whatever the word below means. And again, getting feedback. So that's number 2 is feedback. And then number 3, the podcast you did, which was fabulous, the Get Back Coach, is, who is that person in your life that's helping you, that's coming along beside you? And I was thinking about, what great coaches do. Great coaches don't ask questions to challenge your thinking. Great coaches or great get back men ask questions to improve your thinking. And that is such an interesting way to think about things in terms of, do I have somebody in life? We've all got people in their life that ask questions that seem to challenge our thinking. But do you have anybody in your life that helps improve your thinking? And so that would be the third one, to building that awareness muscle to go, do I have all the ingredients, or where do I need to augment where I'm particularly weak?
That's good. It makes me think, though, we're not good at that in the church world. Now, we need to just state, they know I'm a pastor. This podcast, I'm a pastor. This is what I do, okay? So as pastors, we can become even more insulated because you have the God buffer between every decision you make, which makes feedback or constructive criticism a challenge, and I don't mean just make it's hard to do. We view feedback as a challenge, the people challenging us. So as leaders, as evangelists, of course, with a pastor, it's easy because people vote with their feet, you say. You've told me that multiple times in the last 5 years. So we'll be talking about something, and, if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, people vote with their feet. As an evangelist, you can kind of stack rank, where am I at and who am I with and who's the echo chamber I'm living in. But what can we do specifically as religious and spiritual leaders to allow more feedback in our life without feeling threatened or challenged?
Yeah, I think you have to put the processes in place in order to welcome that, to encourage that, because there's a natural, and in some cases, in many cases, a healthy deference that needs to exist. And so for people to break through that healthy deference, that healthy respect, there need to be processes in place in order for you to actually invite that into. I did this 2x2 matrix, which basically said, if you think on kind of up the left-hand side, it's high value to the organization, and across the top, it's high value to the leader. And that within that, there are people who have high value to the organization, but low value to the leader. And I called them the soloists. They actually have a lot of capability and skill, and they use that, but they run their own show. They do their own thing. And so while they might have high value to the organization, they don't have high value to the leader because that leader is not extracting that value from them. On the bottom left-hand side of the 2x2 matrix, you have the person I called the indifferent. And they're low value to the organization and low value to the leader. They're not involved. There's no engagement. They don't think about the leader. They don't think about the organization. In the top right, it's the challenger. It's that person who has high value to the organization and high value to the leader. They have capability. They have their own agency. They have their own body of work. And as a leader, being able to recognize, where are the indifferents, where are the soloists, where are the critics and the cynics, and where are the challengers, and being able to solicit information because all of them have a point of view. It's sort of like the The Johari window, if you've heard that. There's things I know about me.
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
So unpack that.
You want me to unpack? Okay.
Yeah.
And I may get it wrong, so just off the top of my head.
worries.
But the Johari window is essentially, there are things that you know about me that I know about me. There are things you know about me that I don't know about you. There are things you don't know about you that I don't know about you. And there are things that I know about you that you don't know about me. I think I got all 4 of them. But essentially, there's these 4 windows that, and you got to recognize that there are people in your life that know things about you that you don't know about you. And it's probably more an awareness thing than anything else. We could small a awareness. But there are things that you know about you that I don't know about you. And there are things neither of us know about you. And so understanding this sort of Johari window, again, this goes back to this idea of awareness, which I think is so germane to people who want to be great leaders, is I'm looking through these windows, I need to make sure that there are opportunities for me to look through those panes of glass and sort of taking the sort of the Johari window concept and overlaying this 2x2 matrix I did of the cynic and the challenger and the soloist and the indifferent to be able to get all of these points of view, because it's hard to see everything through one set of eyes.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's good. I've never heard of that. How do you, is it Johari like?
Jahari, I believe. Johari window.
Okay, interesting. I'll read about it, figure that out. That's awesome. Well, this has been an excellent episode, and I am going to assume that Andrew Bentley has a robust followership. I believe you do. You speak out. You're pretty well sought after guy, and I assume that he will send his followers or listeners or people who he's leading to this to have access to his content. And so thank you for joining. If you're joining way after, and this is something that's provided in any platform or in any offering provided by Andrew Bentley, thank you for viewing this, and we appreciate what you're doing as well in your world and field of labor. Thank you so much. This is me signing off from the Armory of Thought out here on the front lines of Podcastistan, and we're going to figure it out with you as we follow Christ. Thank you.